So what does a leather strop actually do? Well, today I'm going to show you what it does up close under a microscope, as well as show you how to make your own high quality leather strop for cheaper and with better quality than you can currently buy one. Don't worry, this is a project that you don't need any special tools for and you can do right at your own kitchen table. I put a lot of information and answer a lot of questions about strops, strop making, how to make the best strops, compound, what compound to buy, etc. in this video. So if you're looking for something in particular, check the chapters down below and they'll take you exactly where you want to go. That rhymed. In order to show you what strops do, we need to start with a sharpened knife. And by sharp, I mean we need an apexed edge. That's when both sides of the knife meet to form a point in the middle. If your knife is not apexed, a strop won't do much to resharpen the edge. However, strops can be used to maintain an already sharp edge over time. We'll get to more of this in a second. So one thing that I get asked all the time is, do you only form one burr? Do you form a burr on one side and then flip the knife and form a burr on the other side? The answer is sort of. You really only form one single burr, depending on which side of the knife is being sharpened. So if you're sharpening this bevel, and this is the stone, we're looking at it upside down here. But if you're sharpening this side, you'll form a burr on the opposite side. If you're sharpening this side, if this is your stone, you'll form a burr on this side. This is like a grade A kindergarten drawing here. So we have our burr here, and all we have to do in order to tell whether or not we've created a burr is to take our finger and gently feel along the apex of the blade. And you can barely feel the burr along the edge. If there's nothing there catching your finger, then you probably haven't formed a burr. So we can feel the other side and it feels completely smooth. This side, something is there catching your finger, and that something is the burr. So one way that you can help find out whether or not you have a burr on the edge of your knife is to simply take it to a strop. Use a strop and drag the knife along the edge. This is the side that doesn't have the burr overhanging, and you can see it's pretty smooth still. Now if we switch sides, now you can see that when we switch sides with the side with the burr hanging over the apex, we've roughed up the surface of the strop. That can definitely help you tell whether or not you have apexed and formed a burr. And here's what that big old nasty burr looks like. Now looking at the other side, you can see how it is folded over to one side. Now when we have a large burr like this that's formed along the apex of the knife, it can actually be very difficult to remove just on a strop. We really need to do some burr minimization techniques in order to help out. And we're going to do a series of alternating back and forth passes to minimize the burr. We want to do this fairly light pressure because we're not trying to remove material here. We're just trying to remove that paper thin burr. Very light passes. So now we've actually minimized that burr almost to a point where it's very difficult to feel now. It is really hard to tell which side the burr is on. The knife feels sharp. It feels extremely sharp, but we still have a burr there. Let me show you what that looks like. So here's a slightly more zoomed out picture before we did our burr minimization technique. And here is after. And upon first glance, it does look like we've completely removed the burr. But hold on, let's look closer. As we zoom in, we can start to see it. There's still a microscopic burr along the edge. So now we have our burr minimized on the stone. What we're going to do is we're going to take it to the strop. This is a 6 micron diamond strop. I highly recommend diamond over aluminum oxide. It lasts longer. It's just a better abrasive. It lasts longer. It doesn't break down on the surface of the strop. It will cut any steel. This chromium oxide tends to struggle with harder steels as well as with high carbide super steels. So I just use diamond for everything. I very rarely use chromium oxide, even on cheap $1 kitchen knives. Diamond will do just about anything that you need it to do. It is more expensive, but in my opinion, it is worth it. So now what we're going to do is we're just going to take our knife and we're going to work it in alternating passes on the strop. You can do a couple passes in a row. It's not against the rules. There's no rules to this. But in my experience, the best way to remove a burr is to do alternating passes. Now I'm sharpening at the same exact angle that I sharpened at, or approximate. I don't change my angle. You'll hear some people say use less angle. You'll hear some people say use more angle. In my experience, a lot of that has to do with the type of leather that you're using. If you're using a softer leather, you're definitely going to want to use less angle or a shallower angle on the strop to keep from rounding over the edge. But if you're using a high quality leather like this 8 to 9 ounce veg tan, you can get away with stropping at the exact same angle that you sharpened at without any negative effects. Now that certainly feels extremely sharp. I think we've reduced the burr to nothing. Let's take a look and see what it looks like. And here's after stropping. We have a much cleaner, refined apex. There is some particulate on the edge, but that is just from the strop itself. Now notice the scratch pattern didn't change. All we did was refine the pattern that was already there. But the actual 400 grit pattern didn't change any. It's just smoothed out, for lack of better terminology. So I think one of the biggest mistakes that people make when it comes to stropping is not stropping enough. You'll constantly hear talk about people concerned about rounding over the apex. In my experience, rounding over the apex happens when you either apply way too much pressure or you're not consistent with your angle and you end up over-angling the knife into the strop as you bring it back, like this. If you're mindful of those two things, not putting too much pressure and not changing your angle, you really can't strop too much. So go to town on the strop and be very, very careful about maintaining that angle. Use alternating passes and that'll help minimize, reduce, remove the burr to basically nothing, and you're going to end up, or you can end up with extremely sharp, very coarse grit edges. And as you can see in the picture, simply by stropping, we didn't change the scratch pattern. We just refined the scratch pattern that was already on the knife. And this is a hair whittling edge off of a single 400 grit diamond stone and a 6 micron strop. That's a 400 grit. That's off of a 400 grit $20 diamond stone and a 6 micron strop. It's all about minimizing and removing the burr and refining the 400 grit scratch pattern. That is what's keeping you from achieving hair whittling edges. So where exactly do you get these things? Where do you buy the best strops? And the answer is, I don't know. I have bought a lot of strops over the years. And to be quite honest, I haven't really been happy with any of them. The good news is that I'm going to show you how to make a very good strop on your own for less money than you can buy one and a much better quality. So let's get started. Does that bring back memories or what? Now, I have ordered a number of these belt making kits on Amazon over the years, and every single one of the belt making kits that I have bought has been super consistent and very good for making high quality leather strops. If you're going to purchase online, this is what I would buy. What I would not purchase is a whole side like this. I've had very bad luck ordering whole side or large pieces of leather online, whether it's through Amazon or through leather suppliers. They've either come in not as expected, or they've come in with a whole bunch of blemishes on them, or the surface of the leather just isn't suitable for making strops, and I have not been happy purchasing large pieces like this. The best way to purchase large pieces like this is to go down to your local leather supply. Now what you're looking for when you are purchasing leather is you want to look for 8 to 9 ounce European bend veg tan leather. This is very high quality, very expensive stuff. So you're going to be sticker shocked when you go to look at this, which is why I really recommend buying a small belt kit like this for your leather, because if this piece costs $20, how much does a piece like this cost? What you are looking for is you want the rough side of the leather to be very smooth. If you can't rub it on your face and not scratch your face all up, then you don't want it for strops. You will know looking at this stuff which is the high quality and which is the lower quality, which is why a lot of people were actually surprised to hear that I like to use the rough side of the leather. That's because a lot of the poor quality leather that you get is extremely rough and is definitely not suitable for stropping. The rough side also holds compound better than the smooth side. So that is why I prefer using the rough side of this leather. The higher quality leather also has less abrasive qualities to it, which is actually what I want. The lower quality leathers tend to be more abrasive, which is what I don't want. I want to be able to control exactly what type of abrasive or what type of a compound, what type of cutting action I get out of this piece of leather. I don't want the leather to dictate how polished my knife edge is. So I want the best quality leather for my strops, and this is what I buy. And since this is not an economical solution for most people, unless you're already doing leather work, I suggest these belt making kits from Amazon. I've cut some off of this already, but 48-inch piece for about 20 bucks, you can make 4 to 5 very good quality leather strops out of this. Extremely economical. Now I could spend an entire video talking about different types of leather and different types of stropping surfaces. Maybe we'll put together a video like that in the future. I will leave a link to this exact kit down below. Literally the exact link that I ordered it from. The one that you're buying is the one that I have. So making a strop is super easy. All you have to do is cut a 10-inch piece of leather. I like 10 inches because it's not too long, you're not wasting a bunch of material, and it's not too short. It works on larger knives. And the funny thing is that once you cut a 10-inch piece, you can use this exactly like it is. Set it on the corner of a table, put some compound on it, and strop away. This isn't super ideal though, and it is nice to have something to hold it in your hand. Now for the base really doesn't matter. You can glue this to anything that is somewhat flat. You can use a scrap piece of wood like this, like I do in this video. Tiny scrap piece of wood, larger scrap piece of wood. You can use an old piece of steel that you have lying around, make really nice strops. You can use a piece of micarta, make big little mini strops like this. You can even use, you could use a hardback book to glue this to, and it would function 100% fine. You could use a piece of glass. Now here's my opinion on glass. I really think that glass is sort of a marketing thing. It really doesn't do anything to increase the performance of the strop. The surface that the leather itself is glued to does not matter as much as the surface of the leather itself. Now one thing that you want to do is if you're using a base, make sure that your piece of leather is the same width as your base. As you can see here, this base sticks out a little bit too far on either side, and that can cause a problem when you get into stropping. If you have a choil that hangs down below the blade edge, that choil will actually hit that overhang and not allow you to get all the way up to the grind line. Now when it comes to gluing the leather to the base, the only stuff that reliably works is contact cement. Super glue won't work, wood glue won't work. Use contact cement. You can buy this in little tiny bottles that comes with an applicator brush inside, and that's what I'll recommend. I will leave a link to that below. I buy it in these big cans because I use a lot of it. Now, the trick here with using contact cement is you need to apply it to both pieces of material, and you need to let it dry fully so that it is not tacky, it does not stick to your finger before you mash both sides together. Read the instructions on the can. See that? It's not tacky. Doesn't stick to my finger. That one kind of still does. But for the most part, it doesn't stick to your finger. That means it's ready. Now you really only get one shot at this. You can't pull it back apart and try it again. So line everything up before you smash it down. And speaking of smashing it down, smash this down so that both sides come in contact. Smash everywhere. If you have a roller, use a roller, put some weight on it. But once the stuff touches, it is pretty much done. It does have a cure time to it. I think it's like 24 hours, but you can go ahead and use this right away. Now at this point, the strop is 100% usable. You can strop a knife on this all day long. However, if you want to take this to the next level, one thing that you can do is condition the surface of the strop. Now, strop leather is a natural material. It is not 100% consistent in thickness as well as the surface dimensions. Sometimes you'll get rough spots, sometimes you get flat spots, sometimes you'll get humps in the surface of the leather. And I like to take all that away by simply getting a piece of 220 grit to 320 grit sandpaper, putting it on a sanding block, and sanding the surface of the strop. Not only does this make the surface of the leather perfectly flat, but it also perfectly preps for compound application. And it's a good way to completely recondition and renew an old strop once the strop has seen a lot of use. Now, when it comes to loading your strop with compound, this is a difficult question to answer because it all depends on exactly what type of compound that you have. Whether it's a spray, an emulsion, a paste, a bar, a powder. There's a whole bunch of different variants of compounds. And I'm using compound to encompass all of those variants. How you apply it is going to depend on what exactly you're using. So I can't really answer that unless I know, again, exactly what you're using. What I will say is that, in my opinion, I would buy the higher quality compounds. Stay away from the $1 or $5 for 5 cheap diamond compounds that you'll see on Amazon. They have a very, very low diamond concentration, and that means that you have to put more of that compound on the strop to get the same cutting ability. That can lead to a very gummy feeling, very nasty feeling strop. It is definitely worth picking up a higher quality, higher diamond concentration compound. That means that you can use less of it to get good cutting performance, and it just does an all-around better job. And a lot of people have asked me how I get such good results on basically a one stone, one strop system. As you saw in this video, one stone, one strop to hair whittling sharp. And a lot of that, actually most of that, has to do with the high quality stropping compound that I'm using. Now, the compound that I'm using in particular is a compound that I had made for me. I no longer sell it anymore. Maybe in the future I'll start selling it again. We'll have to see if I have the time to do that. I have a lifetime supply of it, and I don't buy compounds anymore. If I had to recommend one, I will leave my recommendation down in the description below. I also don't recommend certain brands. I have not had good results with certain brands. I'll leave a link to this down below as well, just to give you an idea of what I don't like. Now, what compound should you buy? What should you start with if you could only have one? Well, for me, my personal favorite compound of all time is 6 micron diamond compound. It is the one compound that you could use for pretty much every grit and get good results. You can use it from everything from super coarse 400 grit diamond stones, as you saw in this video, to get hair whittling edges, and you can use it all the way up to even 5,000 grit ceramic whetstones to minimize and reduce that burr. It really does a good job, especially at high concentration. So that's my all-time #1 pick, is 6 micron. Now, the last thing you can use a strop for is maintaining your edge. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to take a knife, we're going to dull it, cutting some stuff, we'll look at it up close, and then we'll compare the results after we bring the edge back using a strop. Here's our hair whittling edge. This cardboard was sitting on the floor of my shop for a while, collecting all kinds of grit, and it's not a good representation of how much cardboard this knife would cut, since it was extremely dirty. It's not really shaving. So it's not shaving anymore whatsoever. This is what a non-shaving edge looks like after some very dirty cardboard. And you can definitely see how the apex has been abraded away. And back to the strop to bring the edge back. Now, this was actually pretty dull. I think I pushed it a little bit too much and should have stropped halfway through the cutting. But I was able to bring it back to shaving, and this is what it looks like. Essentially, the strop just blends everything right back together and gets rid of all of those harsh edges to form a pretty sharp apex once again. So that about wraps it up on the strop episode. I know this was a long one. I hope it answered all of your questions that you guys have been asking about strops, where to get strops, so on and so forth. And I'm sure I missed a bunch of them. Maybe we'll have a strop movie part 2. Anyway, I hope this helps, and we'll see you in the next video.